So the actual is a little bit lower than that. But if the men are at 48 hours, the women are only at 45 hours. And so why is that? Well, who's got to get home to take care of those kids and pick them up from cake?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and the wisdom of how they sold their first million.
But then, Mark, here's the thing, right? Because you surrender yourself to the initial idea, which is sell the product, and you were open to offer the service instead. So the issue that we have sometimes with entrepreneurs out there is that they design a product in the way they want it to sell it to the marketplace, and they say, "Well, my product is so good. If you don't buy it, that's fine. Somebody else will buy." And they're reluctant to pivot. They're reluctant to listen to the client. And sometimes it's a different conversation. You can have an amazing product. You can have a patented product. You can have a product that everybody say, "Wow, why do you don't give it to the lawyers? Why you don't give it to the accountant?" Everybody was taking it. I said, "This is amazing, but in the format it is, I don't need it. I don't want it." But that doesn't mean that it's not necessary. What it means is that we have to give the clients what they really want, which is the clients what they will really want out of this tool. The first thing is the end result. They really want to know the data and the results, because that's what's going to save the money, right?
Well, there's two sides to this. On the one hand, it's about being persistent. On the other hand, it's about being stubborn. And those are two sides. So
100%.
persistence says, I know this, and I had some early data that this was working, that the people were taking to it. But it's hard in the initial days to sell it. But stubborn is not a good thing. And so it's like, oh no, this is it. This is going to work. And, as an entrepreneur, you can't be too stubborn. At some point, you have to say, the world is telling me something here. The universe is giving me a message.
You have to
And
be able to
I've
see it.
received a few of those messages. Often, someone will inquire about my services and then they'll just drop out and something else comes up. So I have to deal with that reality. But I've been fortunate that over the years, I've had enough business that's kept me in a good lifestyle. But there is a little bit of stubbornness, persistence that's needed. Persistence means keep going when you've got some evidence that this thing is going to work. Stubborn means make some changes and don't stick with this thing forever, and pivot when you need to.
So, Mark, yeah, because at the end of the day, we have this thing like, a lot of people say, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. Okay. But how many times have you seen a fly to go through a glass window? Correct. So, so
Right.
it's about two things. It's don't give up, but also change your approach. If you don't change your approach, exactly what you described, if you're stubborn, it doesn't matter that you don't give up. The fly will ever go through a glass window, correct?
Well, yeah, and you've got to read the signs. And for me, the first sign, and after I appeared on that national show, and the sales manager guy called me up, and I was still working things out at the time. So I had them track their time. And I went to their office and used their computer to upload the information onto their computer. Now, I never did that since, but anyway. And it was interesting because I brought up the results on the screen, and they were fairly crude. All the sales reps were gathered around and were looking at the results and were fascinated to see what was going on. And I thought, there's something. And they tracked their time very diligently on a high number of activities. So I thought, I'm onto something here. When they all gathered around and wanted to see the results, I knew at that moment that I was onto something. So you gotta have to read those signs out there.
So
When a
how you
customer
feel it
says,
when you find out that this business model that you thought that is gonna work, actually you have to pivot? Do you feel excited? Do you have some resistance? Do you say, "Oh my God, I need to spend more money now because now I have to develop like this. I already spent 6,000." So how was your feeling when you said, "Oh my God, I have to start all over again because they don't want to
well,
go, they want the
it,
service."
it, it
It's
wasn't
like
fun to go
starting
back.
all over again, right?
Well, in my case, I had to go back and get a couple of more loans, and I was paying a high amount of interest for a loan, a private
Oh,
loan,
you
I think
have
I
to
got.
believe.
It took a while, but after 2 or 3 years, I was starting to get more of those contracts, and things were starting to kick in a little bit more. So there's another lesson. Imagine that you're not going to have any sales for the first 12 months of your business. If you run a retail store, that's a little different. But if you're an independent consultant like me or somebody selling new things,
Yeah, a tech
um,
entrepreneur.
you better have some savings. You better have a bit of a rainy day fund to get you through those
Yeah,
tough
because it's
times.
very profitable. It's very profitable, but people don't talk about how the beginnings. You see, one out of five, 1 out of 6, the rate is people that come to this podcast. They are all tech entrepreneurs and tech multimillionaires, and people could be having the wrong assumption that because a lot of tech entrepreneurs come to this podcast, 5 Step How to Make Your First Million. People can, the other ones are property investors. The people can be on the
Yep.
entrepreneurial solution that is easy to become a millionaire doing tech. It's easy to become a millionaire doing property. That is very lucrative when it works, but 98% of we never talk about the 98% that never make it. So
Yeah.
uh,
Just in terms of the businesses, so I've got a physical product. It's got a keyboard and, electronic circuit board and so on. In the last, well, since the year 2000, a lot of people were developing websites. So I'm going to develop this website. And what I discovered is a lot of them were just intermediaries. I'm going to provide this service to restaurants in the area, or I'm going to do this or that or whatever. And the website was just kind of a conduit. And I think that era has sort of passed. You need something real that you're delivering. So it's Uber cars driving around, or, it's Amazon deliveries or something. Whereas just pure websites that are just kind of a conduit between this and that, I find tend to be less successful. So those websites are easy to develop compared to an electronic device. There's lots of people who will develop an app or a website for you, but you better have a unique selling proposition and a unique market because otherwise someone else can duplicate that or that service is already out there. So, for instance, a lot of people were trying to sell online courses. Well, all right, you've developed the intellectual property for the course, but it's tough selling courses online. It's tough selling a lot of things online. Having something that has a real element to it, a physical thing or a delivery service or something, is probably going to be a more sustainable business than just a pure website.
yeah, and also yeah, because he had the interaction with the real world, with the physical work and the data work, which is this is the success
Yep.
of all these companies have lied into the interaction between the online and the offline. If that makes
I
sense.
should I should tell you a bit about some of the findings from my database. Are you curious to hear about some of that?
Yes, absolutely. Tell us. We're looking
Well,
forward to
so
hear about it.
um, one of the things I go to these time use conferences every year and show up and present some data. And at these time use conferences, one of the things that comes up repeatedly is that domestically, at home, women do more of the housework than men. They do more childcare, shopping, cooking, cleaning, and so on. And I thought, well, what does that look like in the workplace? Does that translate? So I took my database and I've got thousands of people's names and I split it up into two. I did women in one half of the database and men in the other. And I looked at a whole bunch of different analyses and I came up with four major findings that led me to conclude that women are better at managing their time in the workplace than men. It's quite profound. Women are better time managers than men. And so the first of those findings was that women actually work fewer hours than men. Now, my database is knowledge workers, people working in offices or maybe out of their homes. And typically, men work about 48 hours per week. These are sales reps and account managers and service managers and so on. Now, of that 48 hours, there's about three or four that's personal breaks and lunch and so on. So the actual is a little bit lower than that. But if the men are at 48 hours, the women are only at 45 hours. And so why is that? Well, who's got to get home to take care of those kids and pick them up from dinner?
And multitask and do this
Well,
and do that. Yeah.
but the second finding is probably most important to your audience because of your entrepreneurs, and they think about where do I need to be spending my time? So this works for entrepreneurs, and I've studied a lot of independent consultants, and I've studied office workers. And so if you read time management books, what they tell you is spend your time on your important activities. Well, what's that? You could say, salespeople should be selling. Well, what's that based on? Is it based on their job description or what you see them doing? So during my studies, I actually ask people before we start, what are the most important things you need to do in your job? So you can look at sales reps and managers and construction supervisors and so on, and they all answer that question. Now, a sales rep might say, I got to sell, I got to service my clients, I got to process the orders. But the thing that stands out the most is selling. And so that's an important activity for them. And in the time management books, you'll see something about the important urgent matrix. You shouldn't be doing urgent things all the time. You should be doing important things. But again, that's not well defined. So for the first time, I think I've mapped that. So this is what people are telling us is important, and here's how they're spending their time. And this works for many of your entrepreneurs as well. Turns out that if you look at those high priority tasks, the things they're supposed to be doing most of, they're only doing it, all employees and managers and independent consultants are only spending 20% of their time on their top priority activities. And you go, only 20%? Well, yeah, because you're doing administrative work, you're going to meetings, you're traveling, you're taking lunch, you're catching up on things. And so high priority is just 20%. Now, here's the big difference. Women are at 22%, men are only at 18%. So women are spending more of their time on their highest priority activities. Now, 20%, you can get that higher, and certainly we've seen people up to 30 or 35%. And so my definition of productivity is how much of your time are you spending on your highest priority activities? And to do that, you got to get rid of the low priority activities. So for your entrepreneurs, how do you do that? You have to automate, you have to delegate, you've got to create systems. And so that's very important for them to be productive.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.